You've been very clear that these failures lay at the feet of the Republican leadership in the House, and it seems to me as though the Speaker and the Republican leadership clearly wanted a shutdown, because I think if the American people...
No, I think they wanted a CR.
If the American people looked at the facts and said, looked at the situation, the contextual situation, and said, okay, you've got a Republican leadership that refuses to bring a single, well, I guess about one, but the vast majority of these single subject spending bills to the floor. You've got a Republican leadership that refuses to bring a CR to the floor. In what world is that not a situation designed for maximal chaos and dysfunction?
No, they wanted to bring a CR. I think our leadership wanted to revert to the ineffective muscle memory that we'd all like to be liberated from. I think they wanted to have a short-term CR, and then a long-term CR, and then an omnibus. And I think that's what they want to do, because these very people have fought for that path during the 7 years I've been here in Congress, in one form or another, and in one party or another, no matter which party's occupied the Speaker's office. They didn't have the votes for the CR, is the reason that we're choosing this path instead. So I think it's a better path. It seems consistent with our broader goals. And you're right that there have been failures in our leadership. And it will, when we get through these bills, which are obviously our priority now, given the truncated time period that the ranking member noted, we're going to have to make some choices about our leadership. We're going to have to deal with their failures. And there seems to be universal agreement here that there's no logical explanation for not having done the work that the Congress used to do back in the 90s, other than the desire to centralize power with a few people, have a backroom deal, and then everybody else has to vote up or down on funding the whole government, which we can be liberated from. I want to give you hope that in state legislatures all over this country, there are individual single subject spending bills that move forward, and sometimes they pass, sometimes they fail, sometimes they've got to be brought up again. Oftentimes, Republicans and Democrats have to compromise, have to take half a loaf, and at the end of the day, their budgets balance. And they don't end up trillions of dollars in debt. So I favor the model that we've seen work around the country. And indeed, we may need new and better leadership in order to be compliant with the calendar going forward.
So I want to talk a bit about the timeline, I guess. And it goes back to the point that Ranking McGovern referenced. Republicans and Republican leadership has recessed the House for the weekend, so no one's here. I mean, we're here, of course, but we're not taking up any of these bills. The earliest any of these bills will be taken up will be, today's Friday, earliest will be next Wednesday. So you presuppose, and really it's actually going to be a question for Mr. Rosendale, because I think we're candid in your kind of articulation as to how you view shutdowns and the pain of a shutdown. The notion that these bills will all be passed, all 12, by the House, that the Senate, and of course there are deep disagreements, both with the Senate Democratic Caucus and the Senate Republicans as well, in terms of the bills that Republicans have authored in the House. The notion that the Senate will then accept those, or that they'll be able to be reconciled, right? And then the president signs those into law, all by a week from tomorrow, is clearly not realistic, right? And I think you'd agree with me on that front. I don't know, right? Okay, so operating on that same set of facts. So then, clearly that means the government's going to shut down. And the part I don't understand is, why not, maybe actually I'll come back to you in a minute, Mr. Rosendale, Mr. Biggs, why not do a short-term CR that enables you to have the debate that we are having right now for an interim period of time?
Define short term. You can't. You can't define short term, because no one knows what that looks like. Because we've done short termers in the past. Last year, how many did we do before we got the Omni? We did at least 2 CRs before we got the Omni. And I think you came in when I did.
I did.
Yeah. So that's all we've ever really seen.
So let me pose the question to you then. How long are you willing to go?
I'm going to tell you that, back to what I was explaining before, when there's an exit point from a suboptimal path, Why do people not take it? This is a chance to actually exit the suboptimal path that we've been on. And we get the choice. We get the choice. The whole body gets to choose. We get to say, doggone it, we're going to keep going on this path. And we know that it's going to actually inure to do it again next year and the year following. And so when you say, well, why don't we do it for a week? Well, because you wouldn't say that we could get everything done in 2 weeks, would you?
Well, I guess here's the question. What do you tell the Border Patrol officer in the Yuma sector when he says, I'm not getting paid next week and I still have to work? You tell him, well, it's this political theory of optimalization as to whether political leaders make the right choice, and so therefore we've got to have short-term pain. Do you tell him, as Mr. Rosendale said, that it's a ruse and none of this is real? I don't understand. A week from now, people are going to stop getting paid.
So what do I tell the Border Patrol guys who say to me, Andy, this administration has emasculated everything we can do. What will you do? And I get the privilege of saying, well, we can either continue that on with a CR, where we keep the policies in place and the spending in place, and we get emasculated with 20,000 people crossing the border in about 5 days. And they say to me, I'm quitting anyway. I'm quitting anyway because you're not paying me overtime.
Sure.
And for 7 years, Biggs, you've been trying to get us overtime, and what's happened? Well, the Democrats have shut that down every time.
And I'm not disagreeing with you about the overtime. I guess what I'm saying is, why wouldn't you say to them that I'm asking you,
okay.
Why wouldn't you say, I'm working on it, I'm here in Washington on a Friday trying to get this done, we're negotiating, and I'm going to make sure you don't miss a paycheck as I work to change the policies that you believe that they disagree with. I don't understand why that is not on the table. That's all I'm asking.
Well, so here's my question for you. If we're you're not going to get all 12 out by next week. Are you going to get DOD out? Are you going to get Homeland?
I'm asking you. You're in charge. I have no idea if you're going to get these out. The Republicans run the House.
Then how can you say you're not going to get them out? That's absurd to say on one hand, you're not going to get them out. And then when I say, well, we're going to get these two out, and say, I have no idea. You have to be consistent. And I think the consistency would be...
Help me understand that? I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is where you're inconsistent is to say, you're saying you cannot get these bills out.
I have no idea whether you can or not. I'm not...
Well, that's not what you said.
I'm saying that it seems unlikely that the Republicans are going to get out any spending bills since they've only gotten out one in the last 9 months. I have no idea. More rules went down last week than have gone down in the last 20 years. The Republicans control the House. You are in charge. As to whether or not the odds of you getting 12 spending bills out of the House and then also getting into an agreement with a Democratic-controlled Senate and a Democratic president, that seems unlikely. That's my point. And so why, given that uncertainty, why take the risk of Border Patrol agents or members of our armed forces or others going unpaid for any period of time?